What's going on, Geeks and Gamers? It's Odin coming back with another video, and today we've got the box office breakdown for this past weekend, which saw the release of Death on the Nile, the next in the Hercule Poirot series of films. We also saw new releases like Marry Me. Interesting name there. That was also a Peacock release as well, which is why that ended up getting third place at the box office. We also had Spider-Man No Way Home crossing $1.8 billion overseas, and Uncharted getting released early in certain foreign markets, racking up around $22 million. And so we'll dive into what this means for the long-term box office implications on Death on the Nile, films like Marry Me, obviously Uncharted, and we actually have the week 2 numbers for Jackass Forever, and also for the Roland Emmerich film Moonfall, so we can make some projections on just how much money Moonfall is going to lose and how much money Jackass Forever is likely going to make. So before going any further into these numbers, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching us over on Odyssey. And also make sure you're subscribed to the channel with that bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. So as you can see from Deadline, Death on the Nile charts $12.8 million domestically in its opening, where Marry Me comes in at number 8 behind Jackass Forever's second weekend. Marry Me only getting $8 million, but it was also released for premium members on Peacock. And so obviously that is going to be a part of the commentary here from the people over at Deadline, who loved to always make excuses. As it says, Disney's COVID-delayed release of Kenneth Branagh's $90 million adaptation of Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile, starring Gal Gadot, is seeing $5.1 million on Friday and a $12.8 million opening weekend, while Universal's $23 million budget film Jennifer Lopez Owen Wilson romantic comedy Marry Me, which is also available at Studio sister streaming service Peacock on the premium tier, is landing third, $3 million on Friday and $3.6 on Saturday, for a total of $8 million respectively. So first off, that's a very interesting combination. Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson, not really a pair that I think sells a lot of tickets. That's just my own view and perspective on that. I don't hear, hey, do you want to go see that rom-com by featuring the amazing chemistry of Owen Wilson and Jennifer Lopez? It doesn't really appeal to me all that much, but hey, whatever floats your boat. We also had Uncharted hitting offshores this weekend, bringing in $22 million. However, this is a film that needs to make quite a large amount of money in order to break even. I talked about this on my own channel, OMB Reviews, where I think that there's actually a fairly good chance that Uncharted will be another box office flop because of a massive budget, and also because based on at least early estimates, at least domestic estimates for its opening weekend, things aren't looking all that strong. But $22 million opening, starting at least internationally. Death on the Nile made $21 million overseas, where again, as it points out, Spider-Man No Way Home has indeed topped $1.8 billion, and so the question now is, where does Spider-Man No Way Home end, now that there are films that are, quote, competition for it? And obviously we're still about 2 weeks out from the release of The Batman, which of course will be probably be at the top of the charts for quite a while, similar to Spider-Man No Way Home being at the top of the charts, because if you look at the release schedule, The Batman will have basically no competition for about a month or so. So there's a very good indication, especially with early projections, that that film, one, is the best chance of a film reaching $1 billion after Spider-Man No Way Home. Not to say that it's a guarantee, but at the very least, it will likely be the next major successful film based on early estimates, with Box Office Pro reporting that they expect the film to make somewhere between $300 and $500 million domestically, which, if it's able to do that, would put it, especially if you add any international numbers, close to the $600 to maybe $800 million range minimum. For me, I put the range closer to maybe $750 to $1 billion in its total range, but that is still quite a ways away. So that is still very early speculation on our part. As it says here, hitting 15 offshore markets ahead of its domestic debut and further overseas expansion, Sony's Uncharted mapped out a launch of $21.5 million, coming in at number 1 in all of its all of its openings in all of the markets, taking advantage of school holidays in some markets, and of course Spider-Man, Holland, Halo. Well, I don't know exactly if that's going to be something that's going to carry over. Again, the estimates are not indicating that there's going to be that much of a Tom Holland holdover from from the Spider-Man success. I think that at the end of the day, the reason why Spider-Man No Way Home was successful was not because of Tom Holland, though I think it was definitely the best performance Tom Holland had ever given. And obviously, we look to the featuring of the other Spider-Man in the franchise. I think that is the reason why the film has done as well as it is. It did nostalgia right, it gave the fans what they wanted, and it told a half-decent story, and gave us, towards the end of the film, a Spider-Man that we had been waiting for, especially for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, for quite a long time. And so things obviously looking a little bit up there, but whether or not they're able to hold on to that momentum is, of course, the giant question mark. It says Uncharted's kickoff overseas, where Super Bowl is not a distraction, is tracking 12% ahead of Eternals, 18% higher than Black Widow, and 21% over Shang-Chi. Keep in mind that that's not that impressive. So you have two films on there that lost money. Eternals absolutely lost money. Black Widow, one could argue that the Disney Plus money pushed that film over the edge, but then there's also questions about, okay, but how much money did Disney Plus give in their settlement with the star of Black Widow, with Scarlett Johansson, right? There are rumors that the amount that was given would have been enough to pretty much take away any gains from Disney Plus. There's other rumors that there was no money given. So again, take that with a grain of salt, but at least there's a question mark there whether that film made any money. Whereas Shang-Chi was the only film that we can absolutely say with really no question whatsoever that it made money, but only made around $30 million or so in net gain, net profit. So to say that this film is doing better than those is not really all that impressive. Video game adaptations can be tricky, and take this on the PlayStation game by Naughty Dog is being sold to general audience. Director Ruben Fleischer, Uncharted, had a big start in the UK with 6.4 million, 4.5 in Russia. We'll keep in mind also that a lot of fans of the game are already not really interested that much in this movie because they don't see Tom Holland as being the character of Nathan Drake. Many of them have said, hey, why didn't you just take the very successful independent short film featured Nathan Fillion? A lot of people have been kind of clamoring for Nathan Fillion to be the role of Nathan Drake because he kind of fit that character perfectly, and had, kind of questioned why it is that they had this, why they had Tom Holland fit this role or be chosen for this role, when it doesn't really seem like he fits it in any particular way. And so whether or not it's going to be successful with the, the fan base that they're going after, or the core base they're going after, I would say remains to be seen, and does not seem likely, seeing that we're already hearing criticism just from the casting alone, especially from trailers, etc. Not to mention, of course, Naughty Dog being in some pretty hot water still with a lot of video game fans with The Last of Us Part 2, etc. You can, of course, find a plethora of videos on that topic from RK Outpost, Ryan Cannell. Again, check him out. He's awesome. He is, of course, an amazing person. Looking at the actual domestic numbers, though, talking a little bit more about stuff that's actually going on right now that we can kind of look to get a good idea of where things are. Death on the Nile made $12.8 million in its domestic opening. Jackass Forever came in at number 2 with $8 million, a 65% drop. Marry Me, this was actually a surprise. I thought that this film would not be in the top 3, just based on the premise. Again, I guess rom-coms are still popular enough to get people to go out. $8 million there domestically. Coming in at number 4, Spider-Man No Way Home, which continues to make money. 25% drop. Dropped out of 300 screens, so still in over 3,000 theaters, so it's definitely still profitable enough for most theaters to want to hold on to that property in their different theater locations. 7.1 million adding on there. Again, only 25% drop. The new film, Blacklight, just came out as well, another Liam Neeson action film. These films tend to make a little bit of cash. Again, whether or not it's going to be profitable or not is a big question, because it is a very niche market. I myself find his films to be somewhat entertaining, but they're usually leaving something to be desired. So if you are a fan of Liam Neeson, that's what the film Blacklight is. Sing 2, The Little Engine That Could, continues. 30% drop, another $2.9 million, crossing $300 plus million at the worldwide box office. Moonfall has fallen so far from grace in its second weekend, dropped from number 2 to number 7. This film from Lionsgate dropped 71%, which is really bad in a second week release. $2.8 million. This film is destined to be put onto some streaming service for PVOD at some point in the near future, because people aren't going to see it and are not showing any desire. And this is actually another film that's set to be one of the biggest box office failures of the year already. Scream 5 dropped another 4 places, 40% drop here, 2.8 million. Based on how little money it's made overseas in the week-to-week numbers, it seems that this film is pretty much capped out. Again, it's already losing screens, over 600 screens there. So anyone who's a hardcore fan of the Scream franchise, who liked Scream 5, you've already seen it most likely, and it's pretty much done as far as numbers are concerned. So hey, it ended profitable, but it's not going to be a huge moneymaker. The Kingsman, again, still a massive flop. West Side Story, still a massive flop. No idea of whether American Underdog is good or not as far as money is concerned, because they still refuse to release any budgeting information for it. Encanto is still making some money, and again, you can see some films like Encanto, Nightmare Alley, etc., which are getting either re-released or are still out in theaters because of, again, Oscar buzz around them. By the way, if you want to boycott the Oscars, check out my channel, OMB Reviews, and my website, ombreviews.com, and vote in the Raven Awards. Check out the Raven Award, 2021 Raven Awards, and you'll find a ballot to vote for the best films of the year, where you, the people, get a say in the matter. And there are a lot of fun categories there to boot. The 355 I do want to talk about, though, because it was in the top 10 last week, and now it is just off the charts, only making $100,000, an 86% drop, being dropped from every theater imaginable in its 6th week of release. Keep in mind, you have films that have been in their 9th week of release, their 8th week of release, 12th week of release. Even independent films like Licorice Pizza are doing so much better than what the 355 has been able to do internationally. So that just kind of speaks to, again, just how bad that is. Speaking of internationally, Death on the Nile, $33.5 million. Not a good start, really, for this film, based on its $90 million production budget. We'll talk about that in a second. Jackass Forever up to $42.3 million. Marry Me, $16.5 million worldwide debut. $1.8 billion for Spider-Man No Way Home. Blacklight, we only have domestic numbers for it. Again, this is a film that's mostly going to do numbers really in the domestic marketplace, but $3.6 million for the for another Liam Neeson action film. Sing 2, $310 million. Moonfall, as you can see at the very end of my list because of how poorly this film is doing, $21.5 million. So let's talk a little bit about what that film is going to do. As I mentioned about the Raven Awards, if you go to my website and go to 2021, it'll give you the option to click on this link and fill out a ballot, and you can see films nominated, and you can make your voice be heard. As you can see here, we have Jackass Forever with $42.3 million in its 2nd week of release, meaning that the film will likely end somewhere between $60 and $84 million by the end of its run. Moonfall, on the other hand, at $21 million 2-week total, will end somewhere between $30 and $43 million in the entirety of its run. Now, where the big difference is between these two films is the fact that Jackass Forever costs only $10 million, whereas Moonfall costs $146 million. When you add in what the break-even number for that film would be, which is to take the budget, multiply by 2.5 is typically how you get there. Jackass Forever just needed to make $25 million, whereas Moonfall needed to make $365 million. After 2 weeks of release, we can say with a lot of surety, as you can hear, dogs in the back, very, very ticked off. Willow must have been a very big fan of the film Moonfall. This film is expected to lose anywhere between $193 million and $200 million. That's right, you heard. It's either going to be a $193 million loss or upwards of a $200 million loss. Right now, it's sitting at around $206 million in losses. It's very doubtful that it's going to be able to make that up, even if it gets some type of international release in different countries that it's not available in right now. I doubt that it's going to be enough to make up that much of a deficit, so not looking good for Moonfall, Roland Emmerich's film, disaster film, set to be a massive financial failure. Jackass Forever, on the other hand, had already broken even at the end of last weekend when you added in all of the international numbers. Jackass Forever is expected to either make somewhere between $21 and $35 million in net gain profit, which I think is just fine for that property, right? So right now it's at $42 million, and right now it's at $10.3 million in net gain profit, which makes a lot of sense, for me at least. So Jackass Forever expected to do pretty well, making tens of millions in actual net gain profits. So not the biggest film release of the year, but hey, it's making money, which is more to be said than some of the other films on this list. As you see, Blacklight, because it was made for $43 million, is right now sitting at a $62.3 million loss. We'll see if it does anything internationally that might change its fate. Not a good start for that film. Marry Me, starting with $16.5 million with a $23 million budget, break even being $57.5 million. It's doable. Right now, it's only at negative $24.5 million, but something tells me, and I have some doots, that the film's going to do nearly as well. Obviously, this was them trying to bank on it being Valentine's Day weekend, and some people showed up for it, but what happens after Valentine's Day weekend, it's really hard to say. The real big movie that came out, though, the $90 million film, costing, again, a total of, or rather break-even point of being around $225 million. Yeah, That's a lot of money that this film needs to make. Being at $33.5 million internationally at $114 million in losses means that the chances of this Kenneth Branagh film being successful is not very likely. So even though Murder on the Orient Express was able to find itself an audience, and I actually have tickets to go see Death on the Nile tonight to be able to provide a review for the OMB Reviews channel, so be able to see for myself if it's any good. This is definitely a big concern for them because they're not making anything internationally, really. And as far as domestically, it's just not really a whole lot there. And so there are still some weeks left before films like The Batman come out, where a film like Death on the Nile maybe could find some good word of mouth. A good word of mouth campaign can always galvanize an audience and save a movie or two. So we'll see if that's able to happen for a film like that. It's in a much better position, I can say, than that of Moonfall, whereas, again, difference being around $100 million in where they currently are in the red. But those are the numbers. What are your thoughts? Have you seen Death on the Nile, Marry Me, Black Lights? Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments below. Also, what are your thoughts about Jackass Forever and Moonfall as far as their projections, as far as what they're likely going to lose? Let me know your thoughts about that as well. And again, check me out over at OMB Reviews if you want a fuller breakdown of even more films, which will be filmed and uploaded possibly later today. Anyway, thank you all so very much for watching. If you liked the video, smash that like button, light up that fire button. It really does help us out a lot here in the Geeks and Gamers channel, and make sure that you have that, again, that bell notification turned on, because we have tons of streams going on. We have tons of videos that are being uploaded about a wide variety of topics. Make sure that you are subscribed to Sports Wars, Park Hoppin', our Clips channel. Again, there's just so many channels that we have now that are just incredible and are being run by incredible people. I just want to give a shout out especially to Poor Choices as well, but a huge shout out especially to Ryan, RK Outpost, and also Jay, Drunk 3PO, for Park Hoppin' and Sports Wars, respectfully, because man, oh man, those channels have really, the lifeblood of those channels is because of them, especially Ryan, who's just working himself like a crazy madman. Anyway, so just want to shout them out. Anyway, you guys are all amazing, beautiful people. Thank you all very much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And as always, God bless.